Have you ever felt like someone's silence wasn't just disinterest, but strategy? Like they're watching from the shadows, waiting for you to fall, not by accident, but by design? What if I told you that their passive aggression isn't weakness, but a mask for deeper intentions? That while they're smiling in public, they're secretly rooting for your collapse? Because behind every fake compliment, every subtle dig, every whisper in the dark, there's a pattern, a plan. A quiet destruction aimed not just at your success, but at your spirit. Let's expose it all, right now. Have you ever noticed how some people don't just dislike you, they crave your destruction? They won't challenge you openly, they won't confront you face to face. Instead, they operate in the shadows, planting seeds of doubt and insecurity, hoping those seeds will grow into confusion, fear, and ultimately collapse. And here's the dangerous part. They wait. Like a wildfire smouldering just beneath the surface, barely visible at first, a whisper, a shadow. But by the time you see the flames, it's too late. Your peace, your reputation, your relationships already burning. Or picture a vulture circling above. It doesn't strike, it just waits, patiently, silently, hoping you'll weaken, hoping you'll slip up. That's the strategy. They don't need to attack because they want you to self-destruct. And while they watch, you have a decision to make. Fall into their trap or rise above it. And here's the twist. The moment you stop reacting to their games is the moment their power begins to dissolve. They thrive off your frustration. They gain momentum from your confusion. But when you step back, when you stand firm, when you no longer give them what they want, their entire strategy begins to fall apart. So how do you spot these people before they do real damage? Without paranoia, without fear, without second-guessing every move, you stay alert, you stay grounded, and you stay until the very end, because the last sign will change the way you see everything. Let's begin. 1. They spread lies to tarnish your reputation. This is one of the most calculated, vicious tactics someone can use when they don't just hate you, but actively want to ruin you. They don't just whisper gossip, they launch a campaign, twisting truths, stretching facts, highlighting your worst moments and burying your best. Why? Because they want to isolate you. They want to shape how others see you, before you ever get the chance to speak for yourself. It's not just about hurting your name, it's about weakening your position, undermining your influence, turning people against you so they can feel powerful in your silence. But this is where Stoic wisdom hits hard. Heraclitus said, "Character is fate." And that's not just philosophy, that's a call to action. Because when people lie about you, your first instinct may be to defend, to explain, to chase every rumor. But the Stoic path is different. You protect your character, not your image. Your consistency becomes your defense. Your integrity becomes your shield. Your calm, steady presence over time becomes the truth others can't ignore. Because here's what they don't expect. They don't expect you to stay silent. They don't expect you to stay solid. They don't expect you to rise without reacting. But when you do, their lies fall flat, their stories lose traction, and the people watching begin to see who's real. So don't waste your energy chasing false narratives. Spend it living with truth, because character outlives rumors. Every single time. And when your integrity holds steady, while their schemes unravel, you realize something profound. You don't have to chase the truth. You just have to live it. Let me share a story. There was a man, let's call him Daniel, a respected leader, a man of integrity known for his hard work, fairness, and calm strength. People admired him, trusted him. He didn't brag, he didn't manipulate. He simply showed up every day, consistent and grounded. But not everyone celebrated Daniel's rise. In the shadows, a jealous co-worker began spreading lies. Whispers that Daniel had only earned his success through favoritism, that he wasn't really as capable as people thought, that maybe, just maybe, he didn't deserve his position. At first, Daniel was furious. His gut reaction to fight back, to confront the rumors, to defend his name. But then he paused, and he remembered. The Stoic way is not to flail wildly at every attack. The Stoic way is to protect your peace. So Daniel chose differently. He kept showing up, kept doing excellent work, kept being the man people already knew him to be. And in time, the truth did something remarkable. It surfaced. The people who mattered saw through the lies. They saw Daniel's consistency, his discipline, his grace under fire, and they began to question the attacker instead. The smear campaign? It backfired, and the one who started it lost all credibility. Because here's the lesson. Lies may echo for a moment, but character echoes for a lifetime. So what should you do when someone spreads lies about you? Here's the Stoic path. First, stay calm. Reacting with anger only gives them fuel. It feeds the drama. Second, let your actions speak. Keep being who you are. Let your reputation be built not by words, but by conduct. Third, don't play their game. Defend yourself when needed, but never chase validation from people determined to misunderstand you. You don't owe explanations to those committed to lies, because your character wasn't built overnight, and it won't be broken by a whisper campaign. Stay grounded. Stay true. Let their falsehoods crumble under the weight of your truth, because integrity isn't just protection, it's power. 2. They manipulate you emotionally. Now let's move into something even more dangerous, because it doesn't strike from the outside. It corrodes from within. Emotional manipulation. It's subtle, it's strategic, and it's one of the most insidious tactics someone can use when their goal isn't just control, but quiet destruction. They don't attack you with fists or insults. They attack with guilt, with shame, with cleverly disguised concern. It starts with innocent-sounding comments. I just worry about you. You haven't seemed like yourself. Or, after everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me? Sounds like care, right? But over time, the pattern becomes clear. They don't want to help you feel better. They want to make you feel dependent. You begin to doubt yourself, your decisions, your instincts. You find yourself apologizing for things you didn't do, explaining yourself for emotions that were completely valid, shrinking so they can stay comfortable. And that's the trap. They create the insecurity, then present themselves as the only solution. It's a cycle of confusion and control. And the longer it goes on, the harder it is to break. But here's what Stoicism teaches. Epictetus said, "He who controls his emotions controls his destiny." That doesn't mean you suppress everything. It means you choose your response. It means you don't let someone else's mood dictate your identity. Because emotional control isn't about coldness. It's about clarity. So how do you break free from this manipulation? You stop explaining your every move. You stop seeking their approval. You stop apologizing for simply being yourself. And you begin to reclaim your inner compass. Because here's the truth. The moment you stop letting them define your worth is the moment they lose their grip. And that is real freedom. Ready for the next tactic? The third one is subtle. But if you spot it early, it'll save you months or even years of silent damage. Let's keep going. 3. They provoke you to ruin your image. Here's where the game becomes more aggressive, but even more calculated. When someone truly wants to destroy your credibility, they won't just insult you directly. That would be too obvious. Instead, they try something far more dangerous. They provoke you, just enough to make you look like the problem. Let me share a story. There was a man, let's call him Ryan, quiet, driven, kind-hearted. He had a friend who constantly pushed his buttons, not in big, obvious ways, but in small, passive-aggressive comments. Whenever Ryan did something to focus on himself, like set boundaries or chase his own goals, this so-called friend would reply with guilt-tripping lines like, "Wow, I guess I just don't matter to you anymore," or "You've changed, you're not the same person I used to know." And at first, Ryan believed them. He started second-guessing himself. He wondered, am I being selfish? But then something clicked. He looked at the pattern and realized the only time this person had a problem with him was when he stopped putting them first. So how do you handle emotional manipulators? First, recognize the pattern. If someone always makes you feel guilty for choosing yourself, it's manipulation. Second, stop seeking their approval. You don't need permission to live your truth. Third, control your emotions. The less you react, the less power they hold. Because manipulation, it only works when you hand over your emotional keys. Now let's move deeper into the next tactic, one that's designed not just to control you, but to destroy your reputation. They provoke you to ruin your image. This is one of the most sinister tactics there is. They say things just sharp enough to sting. They make comments that dig into your insecurities. They push and wait, because what they really want is your explosion. They want you to snap, to yell, to look unstable, so they can step back, throw their hands up and say, "See, I told you they were the problem." And to outsiders, it looks like they're right, because all they see is your reaction, not the weeks or months of build-up. It's not about the fight, it's about the optics. They're not trying to resolve anything, they're trying to make you look like the villain. And that's why Stoic wisdom is so essential here. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." That means don't snap, don't take the bait, don't become what they're trying to frame you as, because if they're trying to provoke you, it's because they've already lost control over your peace. And peace, my friend, is the most unshakable kind of power there is. Let's move to the next strategy they use, and how you can disarm it before it ever reaches your soul. C4. They pretend to be your friend to gather information. Let's transition from the attack on your image to something even more insidious, the betrayal of false friendship. See, not everyone who smiles at you is on your side, and sometimes the most dangerous person in your life is the one pretending to care the most. Let me explain. There was a woman, we'll call her Rachel. She had a co-worker who seemed genuinely friendly. He asked about her goals, her family, her struggles. He listened intently, offered support, and built trust over time. But behind the mask of friendship, he was gathering intel. He wasn't creating connection. He was collecting ammunition. He waited for the right moment to weaponize her words, twisting what she shared, leaking her personal struggles to others, and exposing her weaknesses when it suited him. That's not friendship, that's infiltration. So how do you protect yourself? Here's where Stoic wisdom steps in. Epictetus warned, "Do not reveal all of yourself to everyone, for not all have good intentions." In other words, discernment is protection. First, recognize their intention. If someone is overly curious about your private life, especially if they've never earned your trust, pay attention. Second, watch how they treat other people's secrets. If they gossip to you, they'll gossip about you. Third, don't overshare just to feel connected. Genuine friendships grow through mutual respect, not information dumps. You owe no one access to your inner world just because they asked. And when someone shows you who they really are, not through their compliments, but through how they handle your vulnerability, believe them. Because once you identify the false ally in your circle, you remove the biggest threat to your peace. Stay grounded, stay discerning, and never let someone earn your trust just to use it as a weapon. Up next, the fifth tactic, subtle, silent, and designed to fracture your sense of identity from within. 5. They try to isolate you from supportive people. Let's move from betrayal in disguise to something even more destructive, strategic isolation. Because when someone can't control you directly, their next move is to control your environment. They know that your strength isn't just in your mind, it's in the people who remind you of who you are. So they don't just attack you, they attack your connections. It often starts quietly. A subtle comment here, a concerned whisper there. Maybe they say something like, "Have you noticed how distant he's been lately?" Or, "I don't want to stir things up, but I think she's been talking behind your back." They don't accuse, they imply, they don't confront, they plant doubt. And slowly it works. People start pulling back. The calls come less frequently. You walk into a room and feel a shift in energy, not because of what you've done, but because of what's been said about you. Here's the truth. This isn't miscommunication. It's manipulation. Their goal is to sever your ties, to leave you standing alone, doubting your worth, without the people who once lifted you up. Because isolated people are easier to control, easier to gaslight, easier to break, and they know it. But this is where Stoic strength shines the brightest. Seneca once said, "Associate only with those who will make a better man of you." In other words, your circle shapes your strength. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman, let's call her Emily. She was confident, kind, and respected in her career. She had close friends, supportive colleagues, and a solid sense of self. But one day, someone toxic entered the picture. This person didn't start with direct attacks. Instead, they played a quieter game. They'd say things like, "Emily seems different lately, don't you think?" Or, "I heard she's been saying some things you might want to know about." The rumors were small, but consistent. Enough to sow seeds of doubt, and over time Emily noticed the shift. People stopped inviting her to lunch. Conversations would end when she entered the room. Even her closest allies seemed unsure. It hurt. It was confusing. But instead of chasing answers, Emily chose something more powerful: clarity. She doubled down on her values. She reached out directly to the people who mattered. She said, "Here's what I stand for. You know me. And if you have questions, ask me." Some walked away, but the ones who stayed, they were gold. Because Emily realized something vital: the right people won't be swayed by whispers, and the wrong ones were never truly in her corner to begin with. So how do you handle this tactic? First, recognize the pattern. If someone consistently tries to turn others against you without clear evidence, it's a red flag, not just of their character, but of their intent. Second, don't play defense. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You need to be yourself, consistently and without apology. Third, strengthen your core circle. Stay close to the people who know your heart, those who see through manipulation, those who judge you by your actions, not rumors. At the end of the day, you can't control what people hear, but you can control how you live so that the truth outshines every lie. Isolation is a tactic, but integrity is your shield. Stand firm. Stand surrounded by those who see you clearly, and let the manipulators expose themselves while you keep rising, unshaken. 6. They try to isolate you from supportive people. From false friends to fractured circles, the next tactic is one of the most strategic and most harmful forms of manipulation: isolation. This tactic isn't random. It's deliberate, calculated, slow. Because a manipulator knows if they can't overpower you directly, they'll erode your support system. They know that your power doesn't only come from within, it also comes from the people who remind you of your worth. So they move in the shadows, working to dismantle your alliances, one whisper at a time. At first, it might just be subtle comments. "Don't you think they've been acting different lately? I heard they were talking about you behind your back." These statements are vague, dripping with implication, but offering no proof. Just enough to plant a seed of doubt. And if you're not careful, that seed starts growing between you and your friends, your co-workers, your support system. You feel it before you fully understand it. The energy shifts. The glances linger. The conversations grow colder. It's disorienting. And it's meant to be. Let me tell you a story. A woman I know, let's call her Emily, was thriving in both her career and her personal life. She had built strong connections with colleagues, maintained meaningful friendships, and was respected in her field. But one day, a toxic co-worker began a campaign, not of overt attacks, but of soft sabotage. It began with innocent comments. "Emily seems distracted lately, don't you think?" Then came whispers. "She's been saying things about you." The words were small, but the impact was huge. Soon Emily felt it. The shift, the cold shoulders, the subtle avoidance. She didn't even know why it was happening, just that it was happening. But instead of crumbling under confusion, she stood firm. She didn't chase rumors or beg people to believe her. She focused on being consistent, on letting her actions speak, on leaning into the few people who truly knew her. And over time, something incredible happened. The truth surfaced. The manipulator's lies began to unravel. And those who truly valued Emily saw through the facade and came back. Because here's the Stoic truth: real relationships don't crumble over whispers. So how do you handle someone trying to isolate you? First, stay aware. Recognize the patterns. If someone is constantly painting you in a negative light to others, planting suspicions without evidence, understand what's happening. Second, don't play their game. The more you defend yourself against lies, the more it looks like you have something to hide. Respond with calm truth, not frantic correction. Third, hold tight to those who know your heart. Real supporters won't be swayed by hearsay. They know your character. And if they leave easily, they were never truly in your corner. Isolation is a weapon, but only if you allow it to work. Seneca once said, "Associate only with those who will make a better man of you." Your tribe matters. Surround yourself with those who elevate you, not those who entertain drama. Stay grounded in who you are, and the right people will always find their way back. Because you're not here to be turned against yourself. You're here to rise, supported, strong, and surrounded by truth. Up next, the sixth tactic: quiet, cunning, and designed to break your spirit from within. 7. They undermine your confidence. We've seen how manipulators try to cut off your support, but some aim even deeper. They go for your confidence. Because if they can make you doubt yourself, they don't need to do anything else. It usually starts subtly. You take a step forward, they push you 2 steps back. They cloak their sabotage in concern, masking attacks as advice. Are you sure you can handle this? Most people fail at that. What makes you different? It sounds like care. It feels like help. But it's not. It's manipulation. Here's the truth. Their goal isn't to help you improve. It's to plant seeds of uncertainty, because a confident person is harder to control. But someone who's second-guessing every step, much easier to bend. Let me share a story. There was a man, let's call him Jake. Jake had just launched a new business. He was passionate, motivated, and ready to take risks. But one person in his circle, a so-called friend, kept throwing cold water on his fire. Are you really ready for this? Don't most businesses fail? At first, Jake shrugged it off, but over time those words started to echo in his head. Every decision felt heavier. Every risk looked scarier. And that's what manipulation does. It disguises itself as realism while eroding your self-trust. But Jake reached a turning point. He remembered something crucial. Confidence isn't stolen, it's surrendered. So he stopped engaging. He stopped explaining himself. He chose belief over doubt and moved forward regardless. And guess what? His business thrived. The same friend who doubted him? Suddenly quiet. Because here's the Stoic truth. If you are disturbed by anything external, it is not the thing itself that troubles you, but your perception of it. Marcus Aurelius. So how do you deal with people who try to undermine your confidence? First, recognize the tactic. If someone's advice makes you feel smaller instead of stronger, it's not guidance, it's sabotage. Second, trust your own judgment. Their opinion isn't your truth. Your potential doesn't need their permission. Third, silence the noise. Stop chasing approval from people who don't want to see you win. The more you listen to doubters, the more you mute your own voice. And here's something powerful to remember. When someone tries to break your confidence, it's usually because they see your strength. They're not reacting to your weakness. They're reacting to your potential. So don't hand them the power. Don't let their doubts become your identity. You're not here to play small. You're here to stand tall. Stay grounded, trust your gut, and never let someone else's fear define your future. Coming up, the final and most dangerous tactic, one that isn't content with just hurting you, it wants to break you completely. 7. They will stop at nothing to see you broken. Some people don't just dislike you, they are obsessed with your downfall. They aren't satisfied with disagreement, they want destruction. This isn't petty jealousy, it's personal, it's calculated, and it's cruel. They celebrate your failures, they twist your words, they work behind the scenes to isolate you, discredit you, and slowly chip away at your spirit. And they won't stop until you're gone. Not physically, but emotionally, socially, professionally. Erased. At first it might look like competition. Maybe they whisper behind your back or accidentally leave you out of the loop. But the deeper you look, the clearer it gets. Every move they make is designed to wear you down. If they can't control you, they try to ruin your name. If they can't ruin your name, they try to crush your energy. And if they can't crush your energy, they just hope you quit on your own. Because here's the truth, your strength is a threat to them. Your resilience, it intimidates them. Your presence reminds them of what they're not, and they can't stand that. But this is where Stoic wisdom becomes your armor. Seneca once said, "Strength is found in enduring hardship without surrendering your virtue." Let me break that down. Power isn't just about fighting back. It's about not giving in. It's about holding your ground when everything in you wants to collapse. And that's what they don't expect. They're counting on your reaction, your breakdown, your surrender. But when you hold the line with quiet strength, you win. Let me share a story. There was a man, Daniel, a high performer. A man with values and vision, but he became the target of a former colleague who couldn't stomach Daniel's growth. This person started a quiet war, spreading lies, twisting stories, sabotaging his credibility. One door after another began closing, and Daniel, he almost walked away. But then he remembered something vital. His strength wasn't in how loudly he fought, but in how deeply he endured. So Daniel didn't react. He didn't spiral. He didn't lower himself to the chaos. He stayed focused, and that focus paid off. While the enemy tried to destroy him, Daniel stayed grounded, and over time, people saw the truth, then lost credibility. Daniel rose, not with revenge, but with quiet victory. So how do you deal with someone who stops at nothing? First, don't engage. That's what they want. They feed on your reactions. Second, stay in your lane. Every time you pour energy into their drama, you feed their fire. Keep moving. Keep building. Let your success be your silence. Third, endure without surrendering. Endurance doesn't mean weakness. It means you've chosen to protect your peace, not perform for their poison. Because the only way they win is if you break. And you're not here to break. You're here to rise.